Unlike the main syllabus, which is quite extensive, and out of each and every word of each and every paper, for example, GS paper 1, GS paper 2 and GS paper 3, UPSC asks questions. That can only be understood if we look at the previous year papers. If we look at the previous year papers, you will start to understand what to do with this information. Now, please understand one thing. Within the syllabus, there are certain aspects which UPSC is trying to highlight. Now, let's look at this document. The idea is that they're testing you how you write. So you can't just be asked to write short notes. They will give you problem solving issues. They will also be asking questions out of current affairs. Hello and welcome to Unacademy. As a beginner in the UPSC field, there are two documents which will be thrown at you from time to time, and people will say that analyzing them is very, very important. Syllabus and the previous year questions. Now, when we talk about the syllabus, it is a document which UPSC gives us through the notification and tells us what is the syllabus of different optionals, or be it the GS papers or be it prelims itself. The same point of time, previous year questions and papers are questions which have come previously, and it is very important to look at the right years for previous year questions. Now, in this session, there are two important tasks which we are going to do. First, we will try to understand how to look at the syllabus. What are we looking for? Second, how to analyze previous year questions. That is the main reason why we are having this session, is because people tend to look at this array of questions, but they don't know what to do with those questions and how to look at them. For example, how to categorize them. What are we looking for? What is the point of doing previous year paper analysis? Because if you go through each and every question, it may give you a basic understanding, but it will not tell you what is the nature of the paper in that regard. And this is where in this session, we'll try to understand how to look at the syllabus, at the same point of time, the previous year questions. Now, the first important document as a UPSC aspirant beginner is nothing but the notification. The notification is a document which the UPSC will release in January, February, according to the examination date. At the same point of time, it will have a lot of important, you can say, concepts embedded in it. First, when is the examination? Second, what is the eligibility? This is a very critical aspect of giving this examination, the years, the attempts, and thereafter it also tells you how many vacancies are there. And after you go through the initial part of eligibility and what are the services which are there, you will come across this document, which is the syllabus, the syllabi for the examination. This is a very critical document, and we will look at it from a perspective of what are we looking for, because it is just words and it is not very exhaustive. I will concentrate on the prelim syllabus because main syllabus is more defined, and I'll tell you what to do with it also. But this is very important. Now, before we begin, remember that Unacademy is celebrating its 10th year birthday, and with regards to that, it is giving 50% off and double validity. If you take 6, you get 6, 9 plus 9, 12 plus 12. At the same point of time, you are also getting CSC Assure. You have to use the code IS English so that you can be tagged to our team. So use this opportunity to get the offer at the least price possible with double the validity. Now, coming back to the importance of the syllabus itself. Now, within the syllabus, there are certain aspects which UPSC is trying to highlight. Now, let's look at this document. For example, in the prelims, you have paper 1, paper 2. Paper 2 is called CSAT. Paper 1 is the one which matters because this is going to decide the cutoff. Now, unlike the main syllabus, which is quite extensive, and out of each and every word of each and every paper, for example, GS paper 1, GS paper 2 and GS paper 3, UPSC asks questions. Mains is better sorted because when they have written something in the syllabus itself, they are asking questions out of it. So therefore, when you get the set of questions from mains, most probably it is mentioned directly in the main syllabus which is given in this document. However, prelims is very vague, which is current affairs of national international importance, history of India, Indian national movement, India and world geography, physical, social, economic geography of India and the world, Indian polity, governance, constitution, political system, Panchayati Raj, public policy, rights issues, economic and social development, sustainable development, poverty, inclusion, then general issues on environment, ecology, biodiversity, climate change, and general science, with a specific reference to that it does not require subject specialization. Now, The key to reading this document is that UPSC has kept it open-ended because it can ask anything, which is that this aspect, current affairs, interacts with polity also, geography also, history also, economics also, science also, and with environment also. This is how you have to understand that the reason why they've written it first is because this aspect is going to interact with all the subjects. Now, let's look at history, for example. It says history of India, Indian national movement. Now, Indian national movement is directly mentioned, which means that this is an area which we have to concentrate on. Further, for example, physical, social, economic geography of India, world geography. This gives us contours. It tells us what are the limits of our understanding. At the same point of time, polity, governance, constitution, political system, Panchayati Raj. Now, Panchayati Raj is directly mentioned. Public policy directly mentioned. Further, sustainable development, poverty, inclusion. This is where the aspect of schemes comes through. Then, environment, ecology, biodiversity, climate change. This is equally important in that regard because it is saying that we are going to ask a question out of this area. Now, this document tells you what is the overall field in which UPSC is going to ask a question out of. However, the most important document which a UPSC aspirant has to go through is the previous year papers, because this will make sense only when you are going to look at previous year papers. Now, when we go to CSAT, UPSC is more precise in that regard. It says comprehension, interpersonal skills including communication skills, logical reasoning, decision making, general mental ability, basic numeracy. Now, what UPSC has done is very slowly but surely removed, or it is there but they don't ask a question, decision making and problem solving. Rather, they're asking 20 to 25 questions out of comprehension. These two have been brought together, 20 to 25 questions, 80 questions are there. And general ability, 20 to 25 questions. They play with the number each and every year. But this is a qualifying paper, but don't take it too lightly in that regard. This is where the real magic happens. Now, in order to understand what does this syllabus mean, meaning just looking at the syllabus randomly does not make any sense. Main syllabus is much more defined. If it says, for example, that there will be a question on governance, on, for example, e-governance, they're asking a question on e-governance. That's why I want to concentrate on the area which you are going to struggle the most, which is the prelims aspect here, which is what to do with the syllabus. Now, that can only be understood if we look at the previous year papers. If we look at the previous year papers, you will start to understand what to do with this information. Now, please understand one thing. You have to concentrate between 2013 to 2025, 2026, when the examination happens in that regard. Do not go beyond this point. You may want to practice these questions, but they are not important because the pattern of the paper changed here, both for prelims and mains both. So the nature of questions has changed totally, which is any question which has come before this point is more or less based on the old pattern, and you have to concentrate in this. So if you're solving questions and you're trying to analyze the paper, don't go to 1992, don't go to 30 years back and try to analyze it, because the nature of the paper has changed fundamentally and in a very, very difficult way also, because UPSC has made this paper much more dynamic in that regard. Now, I'll take the example of history questions, for example, and you have to understand that every question looks alike, which is, for example, if I show you this question, Raja Ram Mohan Roy question out of 2025 paper, it says it possesses great love, respect for traditional philosophies of the East, desired his countrymen to accept rational and scientific approach. At the same point of time, we have a question on the non-cooperation movement. What are the different, you can say, aspects of the non-cooperation program? Now, though these questions look alike, they are very different nature. This is called a conceptual question. This is called a conceptual question. This is more a factual question. And this is where I want you to do one thing. When you're analyzing previous year questions for every subject, you have to analyze them under the following heads, which is, for example, conceptual, factual, something called quiz question. Quiz question means either you know it or you don't know it. So the main heads under which you're analyzing everything are the following. which is for every subject, be it polity, economy, geography, history, any subject, you are analyzing the number of questions according to the following. How many questions are conceptual? Conceptual means they're based on a concept, which is fundamental rights, fundamental duties. It is based on the concept of how Mansabdari system worked, or on the concept of how your monetary policy works, or how a certain process happens in geography. These questions are easy, and this is where the pure static portion comes. If you are doing conceptual questions correctly, means your fundamentals are good. If you are able to identify conceptual questions, you will realize UPSC is not always about facts. Then the second type of question is factual. Factual means it is a very well-known fact, meaning if they're asking you under which article number untouchability was abolished, this is a very well-known fact. Factual questions are such which are considered to be the basic facts, the fundamental facts, which should be something which you have learned or which should be in your radar in that regard. If they're asking, for example, who is the member of, for example, the NJAC, or who is the member of the CBI, you should be able to answer that question, because that is a factual question which is expected. You will see that the ratio between these two, conceptual, will be more, but it changes subject to subject. I'll let you know about that also. Then comes a very important concept which has emerged recently, which is called application-based question. I'll show you those questions also. Application-based questions are where the concept is given in static, but it is applied in the paper, or they're asking you to apply it, for example. For example, there is a question on fiscal deficit. You have known the microeconomics of it, you know the formulas, but they're giving you an example of that. Then comes the questions which you should mostly leave, or are the 25% of the paper, and you should be able to identify them, which is very difficult, either optional level or random. For example, a question like this, or a question like this can be called quiz questions. This is though a factual question, because this is a very well known fact with regards to Fahian, but this is a purely quiz question that randomly they given 3 names of text and asked you who wrote it. Either you know it or you don't know it. Factual question, you should know it, but in quiz question, either you know it or you don't know it. This is where you have to avoid negatives. At the same point of time, current affairs questions are ones which can be of 2 types. First, it is a pure current affairs question, or it is a static which is based on current affairs, which is because it was in the news, it has been asked. Now, I'll show you, for example, these type of questions. For example, this is a question which is both current affairs, static and factual, meaning NATO was in the news in that regard. It is a factual question because you should know who are the members of the NATO in that regard. At the same point of time, it is being asked because it is a current affairs based question. So 3 different heads have come through, but we'll call it a factual question. Now look at this question. Coal gasification technology, consider the substance. Now you will say, why did they ask coal gasification? This is a static which has been asked because of current affairs. The current affairs aspect is that coal gasification was in the news. That is why this question has been asked. At the same point of time, you can have this type of question. This is called an application based question. They are asking you to use your mind and asking you the concept which you've learned in static economics. How can you use it? At the same point of time, this is a pure current affairs based question. How many countries have UPI? Pure current affairs based question. So this is where you have to, when you look at the questions in the examination, you have to understand they all are not of the same nature. Now what you will realize is that, for example, in polity, you will have more conceptual questions. Let me use a color which you can see. You will have more conceptual questions along with concept of application of the concept which is given in the constitution. At the same point of time, you will have current affairs based questions. However, if I change the subject, history would be both conceptual, at the same point of time factual. There will be quiz questions also, and there will be application based questions also. But other than art and culture, very likely that you will not get current affairs based questions. Economics, you will see, economics is more application based. is current affairs based and at the same point of time conceptual. Mostly factual questions are less likely. Geography, you will get factual questions, you will get conceptual questions. At the same point of time, you will get what is called as application based, and you will also get what is called as current affairs. Quiz questions are mostly, you can say, solvable because the concept is there within geography understanding. Then, for example, if you look at environment ecology, current affairs heavy. Science and technology, current affairs heavy, static or based on static in that regard. So therefore, if you look at it, each and every paper has a certain nature and every subject has a nature. How did I come to this conclusion? Because I have analyzed the past 20 years and given you this conclusion. When you do previous year paper analysis, this is what is expected from you. That you should be able to come to this conclusion that, okay, what is the nature of that subject? What are the type of questions which are coming? How many questions are coming? And then go to any standard book. Don't just run to a coaching institute. Don't just run to any random person saying, teach me for UPSC. No. Try to analyze what is the nature. If in a guided program, we already know that. But if you are doing this alone, if you're doing it in self-study, you should be able to come to this conclusion. I'm trying to push this concept to you that the nature of the paper dictates the nature of the subject, and therefore the way we are going to approach that subject really matters through the nature. Mains is a little bit different. Mains, you will get conceptual questions only with a little bit of facts here and there, because the idea is that they're testing you how you write. So you can't just be asked to write short notes. They will give you problem solving issues. They will also be asking questions out of current affairs. Mains is current affairs plus conceptual, be it history, be it any other subject, and is more defined. It is very well defined in that regard. Prelims is a conundrum which every student is going through, is trying to figure out. That is the dilemma, and that is why this session tries to give you that understanding that there is more to this story than just looking at questions. So next time when you go through the previous year questions, you have to understand this in the right way. So in order to conclude, I would want to make the following important conclusions for you. First is, syllabus is the guiding light. You should know what is expected in each subject. More prelims oriented, because prelims is our focus as of right now, and we have to make sure that we use this opportunity to clear prelims in the first attempt. Then, when we talk about previous year questions, syllabus has defined what is the limit to which we will ask. Previous year question tells you nature. It tells you what are the type of questions which are going to come. And here, when you do previous year paper analysis, you have to divide them into factual, conceptual, application based, current affairs, current static, and quiz question. You have to don't judge a paper and don't judge your preparation from quiz questions, because 25% of the paper will always be like this. 75% of the paper is what you have to do. For mains, you will get conceptual with current affairs embedded into it, and answer writing is a different game altogether, and we can have a session on that also, that how do you approach answer writing, what is expected. So I hope that this short session has been useful for you, and I hope that you will use the opportunity of Unacademy's birthday to get the subscription. Thank you. Take care.